Hello, my name is James Moffett, the host of Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. The following videos are sponsored by the JBS local chapter of Dorchester and Berkeley counties in South Carolina. JBS hosted attorney Michael Rose, a 1969 graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, retired South Carolina state senator and president of the South Carolina chapter of the U.S. AFA Association of Graduates. His presentation was labeled Habits of Honor, Faith, and Patriotism. There are 8 short videos in this series which will be labeled Video 1 through 8.
If you think you might like this video, I think you would. So we can arrange for you to see it. And even before we leave, we can play it again. But I will continue with this presentation, except now
we can read it.
And okay. Now, this slide shows how Marxism is a Trojan horse. You have 1984 by George Orwell, which wrote about Orwellian Soviet language where things were called by different names to make it appear better or different than it really was. So in the upper left-hand corner, you see nice words that sound good, but they're really a deadly poison. On the right-hand side, Marxism is hidden inside this Trojan horse. It puts people into identity groups based on race, gender, ethnicity, and sex orientation. See, Martin Luther King said we should judge people by their character, not their skin color. Well, when you go into identity groups, we're not judging by character, we're not judging by accomplishment, we're not judging by merit. We're judging by some immutable characteristic that you can't change, like your skin color. And so that's the antithesis of our American creed. And this pits people against each other. That's the whole purpose of it. The force to make people go before the school boards and all over the country and suing each other and fighting each other. And we're trying to roll that back. It creates distrust, disunity, division, and conflict. Now this slide shows on the far left the chronological progression of Marxism, starting 1848 through the 30s and 60s. And the middle slide describes how DEI has Marxist roots, and on the right describes how we're impacted by all this divisiveness that's created. Instead of a warrior culture in the military, they were substituting DEI, transgenderism. Doesn't it seem strange we have Pride Month, but Veterans Day? So we're going to, all right, now, I'm going to tell you how the military, this got imposed on the military. In 2008, when Obama became president, the Black Caucus in Congress got into law the creation of the Military Leadership Diversity Commission. Military Leadership Diversity Commission. And that called for creating a culture of inclusion. That's where this came from, in the military. And it changed the way in which people relate to each other. It advocated changing the way people relate to each other. And said it's not, these are the words in yellow there, it's not about treating people, everyone the same. Now, and it actually says, for leaders who grew up with this mandate to be color and gender blind, it seems strange. See, Martin Luther King said be color blind. Judge people by their character, not by their skin color. What this is saying is blindness to differences, however, can lead to a culture of assimilation in which differences are suppressed. They want differences to be honored and think that's a virtue instead of suppressed. Let me tell you what happens in the military. This is a meritocracy. And people are judged when you come into the military, it doesn't matter your background. Now we're all on the same team. And people are judged by their competence, what they can do, and their leadership. What does a leadership mean? Ability to inspire people to do what they wanted to do. That's how they're judged. Now, if you have your son or daughter in the military, don't you want their leaders to be the highest caliber and chosen by merit, instead of saying, well, it doesn't matter the merit, we're going to choose somebody of this race and that race and somebody that's this and that. So, same thing with the doctor, same thing with your surgeon, same thing with your airplane pilot. And all this has been tried, choosing people by skin color, and it's had bad result. You see the airplane crashes. You see with the people, not the most competent people being hired to be air traffic controllers, but we're back down to quotas with skin color. So Obama issued executive orders implementing throughout the federal government this DEI. And then Trump, when he became president, reversed it. He implemented executive orders reversing what Obama had done. And then when Biden became president, he issued 3 executive orders countering, reversing what Trump had put in. So, and then when Trump came in again, he issued 3 executive orders undoing what Biden did. So this has been a ping-ponging between presidents and political parties, what the culture would be. And what I've been doing in STARS, I think in February, in a 5-day period, there were 6 of us went to at least 25 congressional offices because we tried to get into law the executive orders so they can't be changed if a Democrat president comes in wanting to reinstitute this leftist culture. And I myself wrote 10 pieces of legislation that 2 of which have been all to be considered to be put into what's called the National Defense Authorization Act, and 2 of them got in it. So we at STARS actively try to affect what's going on. We help get the COVID vaccine mandate stopped. We help get remedies to people hurt by DEI or the COVID vaccine mandate. And now we're trying with legislation to get Trump's executive orders put into permanent law. Now, let's talk about STARS for a minute. I told you we started in 2020 because of the Black Lives Matter football coaches video. And then the superintendent of the academy claimed in a memo that there's systemic racism at the Air Force Academy, and he called for a report to be issued by September 2020 about systemic racism at the Air Force Academy. Now, I don't think there's systemic racism at the Air Force Academy. And gee, all these years, there's been 50 years, more than 50 years of systemic racism at the Air Force Academy, nobody noticed it. And by the way, superintendents of the area, you've been superintendent for 3 years, and this all happened on your watch, and you're just now saying we got systemic racism? And by the way, under the Freedom of Information Act, we asked for a copy of the September 2020 report about systemic racism. And after 2 years of not getting it, we had to get Judicial Watch to file a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act for us to get it, and we finally got it, but it's over 50 pages of redacted. So now we're trying to get the friendly people that are in the Trump administration to give this to us, and we can see about systemic racism in the Air Force Academy. And we don't think it exists. I'm not saying it didn't exist prior to the Civil War, but that wasn't at the Air Force Academy. Now, vaccination. We have sent this letter in the middle, signed by a bunch of admirals and generals, and I tagged along, to the President Trump on June 2nd, 2025, advocating amnesty be given to people harmed by the COVID vaccine punishment. So, let me just give an example. Air Force Academy graduate becomes a brigadier general. She took the anthrax vaccine and started having miscarriage. And then she had a child born with some medical problem. So then when the COVID vaccine came, she applied for a medical exemption, didn't want to take it, that was denied. So then she applied for a religious exemption, that was denied. So they gave her a choice. You either take the vaccine or you be court-martialed or resign. So she resigned. She didn't want to resign. And she'd been regular general 2 months. They took that away from her because that wasn't long enough. And I was in the Pentagon last week. One of the things I was trying to do is get her reinstated. She never wanted to leave. And if the vaccine denial of a religious exemption was illegal, then why keep her out? It doesn't need to be continued to be punished. We have about 200 cases like this of people being harmed that I'm working on. Pro bono, the DEI and COVID. Now, here are some of the senior leaders in STAR.